Welcome to the LitFest 2023. Today, in the book discussion session, we have Shreyan Laha sir, and today we'll be discussing his masterpiece, Virtually Lost. So, sir, most welcome to our LitFest. Just could
Thank
you
you.
tell us
Thank
a
you for
little
the
bit about the Virtually Lost, first of all.
little bit about let's for before talking about virtually lost. Let me uh, tell the audience why do I write science fiction in general. All right, so I write science fiction because it has an element of future forecasting, social forecasting rather. In 1934, 1931, for example, Aldous Huxley uh, wrote this book called Brave New World, and it was about authoritarianism and how if government gets too busy cracking down on its people, it can be harmful. 9 years down the line, the Nazi Germany happened. Okay, World War II takes place. Then in 1948 or 1949, I don't know, George Orwell warned about uh, you know collectivism in his book Animal Farm. All right, and then that happened in the 1960s and 70s. So likewise, till 2000s, there have been lots and lots of science fiction author who have this element of social forecasting in their novel. Right now, as I feel, data privacy. Whenever I wrote this virtually lost novel, I wrote it in 2019. I published it in 2020 and 21. Sorry, and during that time, there was one thing which I saw missing from the public discourse, and that is data breach and our data security over the internet, which is going to be a big topic in forthcoming years. Right now, it is already you know uh, being seen through hackers and all these things. So data privacy was an important thing which I wanted to talk about through this novel. Now, what is Virtually Lost? It's a novel where a psychologist called Manisha, she enters into this city called Pathabrashta, and in Pathabrasht, she has no memories of her own. She sees that the people around the cities are behaving strangely. Either they are too friendly, or they are behaving in a rude manner, which can be termed as savage in online discourse. And later she comes to know that this city is governed through social media rules and regulations. The municipality is its admin, and the people are real life profiles, and everyone is under virtual surveillance. So, what could possibly go wrong in this city? And it's about Manisha's adventures as she explores this city. So, that's the storyline.
Okay.
And it's about the friends she makes, the kind of people she comes across with, the mobs. Then there are certain in online world in social media you can see little groups. They are mostly private on Facebook, on Instagram, Telegram, even mostly Telegram. Now they sell pirated or dangerous materials. So that was the focus when I you know wrote this novel, Virtually Lost.
It's an interesting point. So you talked about some great writers like Aldous Huxley, George Orwell, The Brave New World, 1984, Animal Farm. So how much do you think that it is the Virtually Lost is in comparison with as par with these two books specifically, Brave New World and 1984?
Now you have just pitted me against some of my idols. So I I would say that science fiction as a genre, it tends to focus on scientific developments and social forecasting. So while their novels are important, and it's pretty much a standard outline for any socio-political discourse as we proceed down any elections or any at that point, technological aspects of the world was pretty much non-existent. So I believe this technological forefront was much needed in science fiction, especially in Indian science fiction, because there are very few authors that I have connected with over time. So that's the reason behind my work, and that's why I believe this novel called Virtually Lost it's important, because it resonates with current time and in the times to come. There are news regarding Facebook actually selling off our data to various third parties or other social media or digital handles, say Amazon. I mean, can you believe the dangers what can happen if our numerous UPI ID and credit cards, all of them are sold to third parties and we don't even know who they are? They may be hackers. And that's the reason why all these scam things and OTP
This is the dark
problems are
truth of the
happening.
modern world. This is the dark truth of the
Yeah,
modern world.
absolutely.
So there are
Mm,
actually two factions of sci-fi writers also. One who is close
mm,
to the society, as you said, that whether we take the previous example of Aldous Huxley, George Orwell, or these days even writers who are
mm.
pinpointing on the current problems, or what the
Yes.
current problem which can exist in the near future. And there's one which is into the
Mm.
sci-fi normally means like space,
Aliens and yeah.
aliens, which I do not know, might exist, might not exist. So what is your take on
Mm.
this?
See, both of them are important because people who science fiction authors who dwell in exclusive world building. For example, you can take this uh, contemporary sci-fi author. Her name is Becky Chambers, and Galaxy. And recently, I was reading her book Galaxy and the Ground Within. It's the fifth book of her entire series of books. Now she mentions about all these aliens and uh, how their life forms are very different than human life forms. Okay, so I believe that when people write about aliens, it's not far-fetched or meant for kids as ordinarily perceived. You will see in most times most of these alien-based stories revolves around the plot that we all are different people as such. Not they are not people, they are aliens, but then we are different creatures and we have our own set of laws and regulations, and we cannot ethnocentrize our laws and regulations on them and look at things from our perspective only. So that is also a message which goes through these stories. That's what I feel. At least the modern science fiction which has been written by Western authors after, say, 1960s. Yeah.
Okay, I remember one of my favorite book, Invisible Man. I'm actually forgetting the author's name, where the first time there was
H.G.
a
Wells.
use of the term, pardon, you're saying the name.
H.G. Wells. H.G.
H.G.
Wells.
Wells. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. H.G. Wells, the Invisible Man. So he coined the term of that plastic card for withdrawing the money, something like that. And now we are
Mhm.
using it. So how much
Mhm.
today's writers, leave aside
Using
the
it.
1960s or before that writers, the current crop of the writers, how much they're visionary in writing the sci-fi which is going to happen in the upcoming future, something new term or something new thing.
Uh, in India, there are few. I mean, in India, there are only a handful. See, you can in Hindi there is Harish Goyal ji, and in English then there is an Anandajit Goswami who has written a novel which the idea of it is at par with this science fiction series called Snowpiercer. He writes about Lucy and sustainability. It's a trilogy, and
I have
sustainability is
worked with
obviously,
him. I worked with him a lot, and we have worked a lot on
yeah.
Lucy actually.
All right, yeah. So sustainability obviously is a wonderful, not just a wonderful topic, but it's necessary as we see the degradation of environment along with our technological and industrial progress. So it's there, but right now what's happening is in science fiction there is a literary slump, as we see. People are no longer interested in science fiction because of two three reasons. One is that people don't want to be preached. Okay, reading books or watching movies, people see it as an escape. So that factor is there.
Agreed with
Secondly,
this point.
uh, yeah, as we authors, the the agenda is on us to make our books more interesting and entertaining for them, so that they can you know uh, take some of our yeah, what should I say, take some of our ideas and then get immersed in it, and then something, make something like the uh, a fandom of sorts. For example, you can see Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. They have, in fantasy fiction, they have enormous fandom. So the duty is on us to make our stories that good. That is what I think.
Okay, there's one thing in my mind when we're talking about sci-fi,
Mhm.
intentionally or unintentionally, we are delving into the dystopia genre.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because you talked
Mm.
about Lucy, you talked about Aldous Huxley. I've also read that, Brave New World. And when I was finding, searching the book
Mm.
in the dystopia genre, then I found, a few years
Mm.
back that the Brave New World is one of the best books in the dystopia genre. Even the same case with the
Yes, yes, yes.
1984, by the way, by George Orwell.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you demarcate that this is a hardcore sci-fi novel? For example, if I talk about it, Virtually Lost.
Yes.
So should I
Mm.
say it is a hardcore sci-fi novel, or it is a mix of sci-fi and dystopia?
It's a mix of sci-fi and dystopia. It's not a hardcore. For hardcore, you can gravitate towards this. What's the name of this Chinese author? Cixin Liu. His Three Body Problem series. That is a hardcore science fiction, because there are a lot of scientific terms and things which are mentioned in the novel, which are uh, which what should I say? These sort of novels have a heavy emphasis on science and
Yeah.
not much on over society. It's more on the storyline basis. So that's the thing. And science fiction, and you told one thing about demarcating between science fiction and dystopia. I believe science fiction has a gradual tendency to lean towards dystopia. Most of the novels that I have read so far. And if not dystopia, they have one or two social commentaries involved in it as well. So that's the thing. And these days, there is another subgenre in science fiction which is coming up, that is solar punk. It revolves around, how harnessing the energy of the sun is important, how we should, you know, sustain the environment, or take care of all the plants and, yeah, around plants and trees around us, and so on.
So a simple question: is Virtually Lost
Mhm.
a sci-fi book or a mix of dystopia and sci-fi?
Yeah, I told you it's a mixture of sci-fi and dystopia, because see this data breaching problems, or you know uh, virtual companies like gaming companies as such, they store all your digital likeness. For example, they share your there are they build this certain graph around your face, and how you know they have all these data to create your digital likeness, and with that they can even make a fake video of yours if they wish to do so. And that's one of the reasons TikTok got banned in India, because TikTok not only just collected the normal data of people, their what should I say, files, storage options, and contacts and such. They also marked digital likeness of its most, you know, the people who had a high follower count in that year social media platform, and which is dangerous as such. So the element of dystopia is there in Virtually Lost. For example, there is a girl called Zaria. Okay, now what does Zaria do? She's a 16-year-old normal girl, and she is homeschooled. She's not educated through schools, but she is a member of a cult, and she doesn't realize it. Whenever Manisha asks for her help, or tells her about how she's, suffering a mental breakdown. She she is pretty, yeah, she gives pretty naive answers, and she streams her back to her own cult. And this cult, they manufacture, a senseless sort of utopia. They manufacture a kind of hallucinogen drugs, if you may. So to keep the people under control, and
Okay.
all the people under this cult are, and this cult is known as Jupiterists. They worship the planet Jupiter.
Find one thing interesting actually. Every time we talk about dystopia, something like this, there is always a mentioning of something, a drug like I know, which is hallucinating in nature. Then means it's just a, I think it's a
Mhm.
common denominator. So what is the idea behind it? Every author's doing the same thing about this aspect.
Agree.
Am I audible?
I mean, it's seen. Yeah, yeah, you are audible. It's more seen in certain science fiction stories or series. You know, in there are one two things about it in Altered Carbon, if I
Yes,
guess
altered
so.
carbon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, controlling your mind is something which can be explained by two things. One, through overwhelming digital information, as been described in this book. And the easiest way to control is your mind is through hallucinogen. Because if you are on hallucinogen, your doors of perception are very open, and you tend to absorb each and every word rather than. Are you there? Yeah. So that's one thing. And secondly, I don't see many science fiction authors, talk about drugs, because it wasn't there in Animal Farm, or things like that, or any of the classics like Clifford D. Simak's book, or uh, the books of, yeah, what's the name of Ray Bradbury, or such authors. There were no such things. It's more of a trend in recent science fiction series, and not books.
Okay, so now coming to some questions about the book rather than the genre. So how do you
Hmm.
describe your antagonist of the the book, or the supporting characters of the book?
The supporting characters. See, the first supporting character I had already mentioned, Zarya, and she is a 16-year-old girl. She uh, she is pretty receptive about the entire world around her. She knows she cannot get out of this city, and she is under permanent control. But she searches for things which makes her happy, which is to be a part of this Jupiterist gang. And the Jupiterists are a group of people who believe in the planet Jupiter, and they have very streamlined, points about why the planet Jupiter is the true god. They believe that a god saves us, and planet Jupiter saves us from asteroids. One thing. Second, the planet Jupiter also has a long-standing history. It's mentioned in all the textbooks around the world. Even in our history, there is Buddha. In Roman history, Greek history, uh, it's there throughout. So that way, Jupiter can be streamlined into one perfect god. And then there are other characters. Then there is Annuel. Annuel is a socially awkward person. He spends most of his time online, and he doesn't know how to interact. And whenever he interacts in a very rude way. And then there are other characters which the readers might come across if they read the book. I'm not disclosing it right now. These characters are the law enforcers. Now you see social media ban and how cruel it is. I mean, if you say a statement, and it shouldn't be. I mean, it's not, even if it's not offensive, and if a person reports you and flags you, or 10, 20 people, as they do in political circles, they get together and all of them reports your statement. You are gone. You are banned for a day, or 3 days, or 4 days, 7 days, as much as the social media seems fit. So that way, Annual did something, and the punishment for him is so harsh. He goes to jail. He just speaks rudely with yeah, Manisha, and he then goes to jail. So these are the two prime characters, Anvil and Manisha, and then there is Adyot. Adyot is another. He's a differently abled person, and no one understands him. There is a sort of thing that I wanted to write about disabled people, because not many authors write about disabled, the disabled section of our society. So I had it in mind that I would, whenever I write a novel, I would write about this fact as well. I mean, some of their genius, how they go about things in their day to day life. So that's there. That is what I want to say about these characters.
So your
Rest the readers
protagonist
can
is a
read it from the book.
psychologist, right? Your
Yeah.
protagonist is a
Hmm.
psychologist by profession. So what if she would have, another profession? How would the story have panned out?
See, if she was a if she was an IT engineer, the story would have ended on the fifth page because she would have. Yeah, obviously, because if she was a social, if she worked in Google or Facebook or something like that, the story would have ended in fifth page, because she would have chalked out, oh, these things are wrong in the algorithms. Let me talk to the developers or the municipal persons of the this is how you can solve the problems. So if they were if they were a teacher or a normal person, they would have had severe heart attacks, or even they could have gone on the verge of breakdown, when if they were pressed to say that they would never be able to step out of this city. This city is like a maze, and you have to interact in a certain way. You have to abide by these rules and regulations. So people would have had a dangerous shock in their lives. So I thought that the psychology, if a person has a psychologist as a profile, it would be fit for the storyline, because she can even self assess on herself on the go, that what's happening to me, how are the people behaving, why are they behaving like that. She would have all these intuitions, and also a educational background to deal with that.
One very, interesting part of mine. Which part of the book you yourself do not like it at all?
Which part of the book which I would not like?
Yeah, you do not like it all that. Okay, I have written, but if I get a chance, I will rewrite. Means I have just framed the question in another way. So which part of the book you
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to
I would.
rewrite?
Not this book in particular. There are other books that I have written where I would have thought so, but not this book in particular, because first of all, when I started writing science fiction, there was no one to take help from. Okay, and it was a trial and error process. I published one book, and then I realized, oh, have to read more books. I have to learn more about this subject. And then I wrote the second book. The first book was Not Worth Living For, and then I wrote Tiny Reason to Live. Then by the time I wrote A Year Without Summer, it was mostly okay. And then before Virtually Lost, I sat down with a huge Excel sheet, maintained each of these characters, how they would progress
This
as
is
the
something
story
new, actually.
unfolds. But yeah,
Sorry to cut. I will continue your
yeah,
discussion. Means having an Excel sheet. We have seen, we all are authors having
mhm,
blank papers, having,
yeah.
markers, having sticky notes. Is a common
No, you would be
phenomenon.
surprised. Yeah, a lot of authors do that secretly, and when I tell them, "अरे हाँ हाँ मैं भी करता हूँ,"
Yeah, मतलब
that's
ये तो
their
सच में
reaction.
मेरे लिए तो खैर फर्स्ट टाइम है एक एक्सेल सीट मेंटेन करना,
हाँ,
मतलब बुक के लिए, मतलब
हाँ,
तो मैं ये जानना चाहूंगा कि इस बुक के रिगार्डिंग आपने ऐसी कौन सी सीक्रेट जो है मतलब चीजें करी हैं कि जो मतलब नॉर्मली ऑथर्स नहीं करते।
नहीं, नहीं, वो तो नहीं करते हैं। एक्सेल शीट में आजकल बहुत ऑथर्स लिखते हैं, कोई ऐसी बात नहीं है। एक जैसे रोज एंड कॉलम्स हो गए, रोज में आप चैप्टर लिख दिए, चैप्टर में ये फर्स्ट चैप्टर में इसका इंट्रोडक्शन होगा, ठीक है, तो वहां पर लिख दिया उस कॉलम में इंट्रोडक्शन। चैप्टर टू में ये इस आदमी से इसका बात होने वाला है। फिर नेक्स्ट चैप्टर में के साथ इनका झगड़ा होने वाला है, या इनके साथ ये, अब ये दूसरे आदमी का दल में नो दूसरे आदमी का दल में जाने वाला है। तो ऐसे 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 चलते रहता है स्टोरी। और यहाँ पर मतलब कुछ कैरेक्टर्स को जब एलिमिनेट भी करना होता है कि दिस इज हाउ ही डाइस, तो वैसे आसान हो जाता है एक्सेल शीट में। राइटिंग में उतना आसान नहीं होता है।
फिर तो मैं बहुत ही ओल्ड स्कूल हूँ, मतलब मैं आज भी मतलब डायरी।
नहीं नहीं, ओल्ड स्कूल की कोई बात नहीं, मैं भी राइटिंग में ही करता हूँ कभी कभी, क्योंकि मतलब स्टेप वन स्टेप टू ही होता है ना।
आपकी वर्चुअली लॉस्ट का सीक्वल आना है?
वर्चुअली लॉस्ट का मैं सोच तो रहा था, लेकिन मतलब स्टोरी का एक ठीक ठाक एंड हो गया है, तो मैं नहीं सोच रहा हूँ अभी कि मतलब कुछ और लिखूंगा। जबरदस्ती फोर्स करने से फिर एक बुरी नॉवेल ही आएगी, और मतलब इससे अच्छा तो नहीं होगा।
नहीं, आजकल
इसीलिए मैं
जैसे एक
छोड़
ट्रेंड
देता
है
हूँ
ना
इसको
कि जब
यहीं पे।
एडेप्टेशन के लिए बात करते हैं, एडेप्टेशन के लिए हमारी कहीं बात चल रही होती है, तो दे से कि सर इसका
हम्म।
सीक्वल क्या है। और आजकल तो सीक्वल का मतलब इट्स
हाँ
लाइक फैशन।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, सीक्वल ट्रायोलॉजी भी।
हाँ, ट्रायोलॉजी भी। तो अगर मान लो
हम्म
एडेप्टेशन होती है इन नियर फ्यूचर,
हम्म।
एंड प्रोडक्शन हाउस सेज कि सर आपको इसका सीक्वल करना पड़ेगा, तो व्हाट वुड बी द स्टोरी लाइन?
हाँ, स्टोरी लाइन फिर सोचूंगा तब। ये तो वर्चुअली लॉस्ट पे लिखा हूं, तब एक्चुअली लॉस्ट किसी पे लिखूंगा, क्योंकि ऐसे बहुत सारे लोग। हाँ हाँ, क्योंकि मतलब मैंने बहुत सारे ऐसे लोगों को देखे कि वाइल दे आर वेरी रियल, मैंने बात करने में ऐसा लगेगा कि नॉर्मल आदमी से बात करते हैं, उनके दिमाग में एक ऐसा भ्रम होता है, मतलब उसको आप चैलेंज कर ही नहीं सकते हैं, आप कितना भी लॉजिकल बात कर दे वो भ्रम से आप उसको निकाल ही नहीं सकते हैं। तो कुछ दिन पहले एक किसी से मुलाकात हुआ था, तो उन्होंने तो वो बता रहे थे कि ये कि हम लोग बहुत डीप डिस्कस कर रहे थे, मतलब मैं अपने पिताजी के डेथ के बारे में डिस्कस कर रहा था, लास्ट 5 साल क्या गुजरी है मेरे ऊपर से उनको ये करते, क्या कहते हैं, मतलब पूरे नर्स के तरह मैं उनके बेड के साइड में रहता था। तो वो समय कैसा गुजरा मैं उनको पेनफुल, तो उन्होंने भी कहा कि हाँ मेरा बेटा तो 7 साल का था, मेरा बेटा के साथ भी ऐसा हुआ था। और बताते बताते फिर एक ये आया कि वो बता रहे थे कि वो 7 साल के उम्र में आइंस्टाइन का इक्वेशन सॉल्व कर रहा है, ये का इक्वेशन। तो मेरे को बुरा लगा, मैं उस मतलब उनका इमोशन तो समझ रहा हूँ ना मैं, कि मतलब ही इज इन अ स्टेट ऑफ शॉक, वो बताना नहीं चाह रहे, लेकिन मतलब कुछ कुछ बातें ऐसे बता रहे मतलब जो बहुत ही अनबिलीवेबल है, मतलब वो एडवांस्ड कैलकुलस कर रहा है, ये उसका IQ 230 है, आइंस्टाइन का 160 है। तो उस मोमेंट में मैं तो कुछ नहीं कह सकता हूँ ना, उनका फीलिंग को तो ध्यान
जज
में
नहीं कर
रखना
सकते,
पड़ेगा।
जज नहीं कर सकते।
हाँ, वही बात है। तो ऐसे बहुत सारे एक्चुअली लॉस्ट लोग हैं, एंड दिस स्टेम्स फ्रॉम अ डीप डीप सैडनेस विद इन आवर हार्ट। ये ऐसे नहीं कि ये लोग झूठ बोलना चाहते हैं, दूसरों को कंपल्सिवली बरगलाना चाहते हैं। इट्स समथिंग विच स्टेम्स फ्रॉम डीप विद इन योर हार्ट एंड अ डीप सैडनेस, कि मैं चलो ये कर नहीं पाया अपना बेटा को, इन दिस एग्जाम्पल अपना बेटा को आगे लाइफ में कुछ होते हुए देख नहीं पाया। तो दैट इज समथिंग विच आई वांट टू एक्सप्लोर।
ओके,
ये
सो
साइंस
वर्चुअली
फिक्शन में
लॉस्ट
नहीं
एंड
होगा
एक्चुअली
ऑब्वियसली।
लॉस्ट। नहीं,
हाँ हाँ
वंडरफुल
हाँ,
टाइटल,
साइंस
मतलब जो
फिक्शन में
कहते हैं
नहीं होगा।
टाइटल शुड बी इनग्रॉसिंग, तो वो तो खैर है। चलिए लास्ट करते हैं
हाँ
स्टिचिंग का
हाँ।
कुछ। सो एक सवाल है, मेरा लास्ट सवाल जो है कि
हम्म।
आपने साईफाई पे आप करते हो, तो कौन सा जॉनर जो है नेक्स्ट, मतलब अगर मतलब कहते हैं एज अ राइटर हम ट्राई करते हैं डिफरेंट डिफरेंट जॉनर। सो अगर हम लोग श्रेयन लाहा की नेक्स्ट बुक देखें इन द डिफरेंट जॉनर, तो वो कौन सी जॉनर होगी?
मेनली हॉरर या फैंटेसी, क्योंकि हॉरर में मैंने पहले भी लिखा है स्टोरी, छोटे छोटे स्टोरीज, शॉर्ट स्टोरीज लिखे हैं। और नहीं तो पोएट्रीज भी हो सकता है, बीच बीच में मैं कभी कभी पोएट्रीज भी लिख लेता हूँ, इंग्लिश में भी हिंदी में भी।
अच्छा,
तो सुनाओ क्या, अभी एक हिंदी पोएट्री लिखा था कुछ दिन पहले।
अगर है तो सुना दें, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है।
1 मिनट रुकिए, कहाँ गया। हम्म, चतुराई चतुराई। तो इस पोयम के नाम है चतुराई। तो वो बुद्धि का जहर दुनिया द्वारा हमें पिलाया गया। बुद्धि मतलब ज्ञान नहीं, बल्कि वो चतुराई जो हम सीखे। और चतुराई भी किस लिए? उसी दुनिया के लिए जिसके व्यवहार रहे दो मुँहे, जिसके ताने सदा तीखे। थे तो हम सारे बच्चे प्यारे और सकारात्मक, लेकिन क्रिकेट फुटबॉल से आगे चलकर सीखने पड़े दांव पेच। चाहे किसी दफ्तर से पन्ना निकलवाना हो, या फिर चुप्पी साधना जहां इंसान झूठे सर चढ़े। मानसिक विकास को ठहराया गया बचकाना, बात बात पर राजनीति बनी जागरूकता के लक्षण। क्षण भंगुर मौजों ने बनाया बालकों को मर्द, क्योंकि मध्यम सोच बना राम और हम बने लक्ष्मण। जिज्ञासु पलकों से इस दुनिया को देख, पता चला कि हम ही ठीक थे। लेकिन बदकिस्मती से इसे भी अहंगवाद ठहरा दिया जाएगा। इस चतुराई से भरी दुनिया के सामने कैसे ही करे कोई पारदर्शिता या ज्ञान का संवाद।
काफी अच्छी
ये
पोएट्री की।
पोयम लिखा था।
तो नेक्स्ट हम लोग पोएट्री
थैंक
कलेक्शन
यू।
देखने वाले हैं या फिर हॉरर जॉनर?
हाँ, हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
चलिए,
देख
आगे के
सकते हैं।
विशेषण को देखते हुए मैं इस सेशन को यहाँ पे मतलब एंड करना चाहूंगा। एंड थैंक यू।
थैंक यू फॉर दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी। थैंक यू।